On September 8, 1900, the deadliest natural disaster in American history struck the city of Galveston, Texas. But this storm didn't just kill thousands of people, it permanently altered the economic geography of the entire state, redirecting the flow of commerce in ways that still shape Texas today. I'm Nick Eichelhart, and I'm your host for today's episode of The Weather Vault. Before we dive into the meteorology of this catastrophe, let's understand what Galveston was in 1900. This photograph from June 1900 shows a thriving metropolis of almost 38,000 people, making it the largest city in Texas. Between 1870 and 1900, the population had nearly tripled. The city handled more than 2 million bales of cotton in 1899. You can see the massive scale of this operation in this photograph of cotton bales stacked at the port. This was 70% of the entire country's cotton crop. The value of exports coming out of the port of Galveston exceeded $85 million. Economists predicted Galveston would become one of the busiest ports in the nation. The storm that would destroy this prosperity was first detected on August 27th by a ship more than 1,000 miles east of the Windward Islands. It moved steadily westward as a weak tropical storm, making initial landfall in the Dominican Republic on September 2nd. The system remained weak while crossing Cuba and didn't enter the Gulf of Mexico until Thursday, September 6th. Here's where the meteorology becomes crucial. This synoptic meteorological map from September 6th shows the location of a high-pressure system north of Bermuda, with the storm located over the Florida Keys. The strength of the Bermuda High has a significant impact on the track of hurricanes coming out of the Atlantic, determining whether it curves out to sea like Hurricane Aaron did last week, or continues westward into the Gulf of Mexico. It so happens that the Bermuda High was strong at this particular point in time, meaning that since tropical cyclones naturally move towards areas of lower pressure, the storm was essentially steered into the Gulf of Mexico. This was a track predicted by Weather Bureau meteorologists in Cuba, and notably different from the expectations of the American forecasters. Unfortunately, the director of the U.S. Weather Bureau in Washington had an ego problem and didn't trust Cuban forecasters. This accurate prediction was never utilized, and U.S. meteorologists were forbidden from calling the storm a hurricane at all without his express permission. Once in the Gulf, rapid intensification began immediately. Sea surface temperatures were between 82 and 84 degrees, perfect conditions for strengthening. By September 6th, it became a hurricane. By the end of Saturday, September 8th, it had become a major hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 145 miles per hour and a central pressure of 936 millibars. To put that in perspective, look at this damage from Hurricane Harvey, which devastated the Texas coast in 2017. The 1900 storm was actually slightly stronger. The storm was extremely compact with a radius of maximum winds of only 14 nautical miles. This small size would create a concentrated punch. The shallow waters off the coast of Galveston couldn't spread out the storm surge. Unlike deep water, shallow water does not allow for the energy to dissipate downward, instead forcing the water upward. This is similar to why tsunamis are more dangerous on coasts than out at sea. The end result would be a steep dome of water that would inundate the entire island. The hurricane made landfall at 8 p.m. Central Time, just southwest of Galveston Island. The Weather Bureau office recorded sustained winds of 130 miles per hour before the instrument was destroyed. About 30 miles from the estimated eye, a barometric pressure of 967 millibars was measured, though this was likely a significant underestimate of the storm's true intensity. Residents reported that around 7:30 p.m., the sea rose by 4 feet in just 4 seconds. With Galveston only sitting a few feet above sea level, the entire city was underwater for hours. Weather Bureau meteorologist Isaac Klein described the aftermath. Where 20,000 people lived on the 8th, not a house remained on the 9th, and who occupied the houses may, in many instances, never be known. Between 6,000 and 8,000 people died in Galveston, and thousands of buildings were destroyed. This aerial photograph taken after the storm shows the kind of complete devastation Klein described. The immediate destruction was catastrophic, but the long-term economic consequences would prove even more significant. It took slightly over a decade for the port of Galveston to recover to its pre-1900 levels. That recovery, however, would be short-lived. Why is that? The devastation exposed Galveston's vulnerability to dangerous weather. Before the storm, marine insurers treated Galveston like any other Gulf Coast port with normal risks. After the storm, this changed drastically. Many insurers took huge losses from payouts for destroyed ships, cargo, infrastructure, and warehouses full of cotton and grain. The perception shifted from a city with normal coastal risk to one with severe risk of complete inundation. Insurance rates surged as there was now considered to be a much greater risk of ships and cargo being destroyed in Galveston than in other ports. This created a deterrent effect where companies with ships and cargo sought less costly alternative ports. We see the same dynamic today. Insurance rates in Florida have been climbing for years as rising sea levels and more frequent devastating hurricanes increase the probability of severe damage. Other coastal cities along the eastern seaboard and internationally have the same risk as well. This creates a financial deterrent that reduces recovery and future investment in higher risk areas. The same dynamic undermined Galveston's efforts to recover its dominance, even after construction of its 17-foot seawall in the years immediately following the hurricane. If you're in Galveston today, Seawall Boulevard takes you right along where that seawall still stands. In 1914, a 50-mile ship channel was dredged, connecting Houston directly to the Gulf. Why Houston? The 1901 discovery of oil at Spindletop near Beaumont created a massive oil boom and intense demand for new oil infrastructure. This photograph shows the Spindletop oil derrick that sparked the Texas oil industry. Oil became the #1 export from Texas, replacing cotton. This reduced Galveston's influence as the port was particularly well suited for cotton and grain, not so much oil. Houston was also located at the intersection of multiple railroads. This image shows the Houston Ship Channel as it was in 1914, creating a deep-water port that allowed oil to be loaded directly onto ocean-going freighters, rather than the additional cost and time of shipping oil by train from Galveston. Increasingly large volumes of trade were redirected to Houston rather than Galveston. The rates of growth of Houston and Galveston would differ drastically after the hurricane. From 1880 to 1900, Houston was growing at 5% a year, Galveston at 3% a year. After the hurricane, Houston's growth rate increased while Galveston slowed to less than a third of its previous rate. When the 1910 census was taken 10 years later, Galveston population had actually declined compared to just before the hurricane. By 1930, the port of Houston had fully overtaken Galveston in both cotton exports, previously Galveston's primary cargo, and overall freight volume. This aerial view of the modern port of Houston shows just how massive it has become. One of the busiest ports in America, while the port of Galveston is known more as the 4th busiest cruise port in the United States than for its cargo shipping. The 1900 Galveston hurricane killed thousands and destroyed a city, but its most lasting impact was redirecting the economic future of Texas itself, transforming Houston from a secondary inland city into a major port that would eventually become the 4th largest city in America. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to always be informed of my latest videos.